Someone questions you in front of a group of people. Before they even finish speaking, you feel the urge to prove yourself. You start explaining. You start defending. You start searching their faces for a sign that they finally understand you. But here's the mistake most people never notice. The moment you need someone else to understand your worth, you have already handed them control over your confidence. You think confidence is proving you are right. You think confidence is having the perfect response, but real confidence is different. Real confidence is the ability to stay steady when someone else has the power to misunderstand you. Most people are controlled by invisible pressure, not because they are weak, because they have trained themselves to react whenever their status, image, or approval feels threatened. The person who controls your emotions controls the situation, and most people give that control away without realizing it. In this video, you will discover 5 Stoic rules that transform fragile confidence into something much stronger. A confidence built on discipline, self-control, and principles that remain steady when people challenge you. Because the most dangerous person in the room is not the loudest person. It is the person who cannot be easily controlled. Rule 1. Stop explaining yourself to people who already decided. The person with true confidence understands one thing. Not every misunderstanding deserves your energy. Most people explain themselves because they believe being understood is the same as being respected. But what they don't realize is that endless explanations often communicate the opposite message. They reveal that another person's opinion has become important enough to control their behavior. Think about the last time someone judged one of your decisions. Maybe a coworker questioned your choice. Maybe a friend criticized your goals. Maybe someone dismissed something you cared about. The first instinct is usually to convince them. You gather evidence. You defend your reasoning. You add more details. But notice what happens. The conversation stops being about your decision. It becomes about earning permission for your decision, and that is where confidence disappears. Imagine telling someone you are changing your life. You are waking up earlier, training consistently, building something important. They respond, "Are you really going to keep doing that?" The old version of you starts explaining. You list your reasons. You try to make them agree. The stronger version of you does something different. You listen, you consider whether there is anything useful, and if there isn't, you simply continue, not because you cannot explain yourself, because you no longer need every person to approve of your direction. That is the difference between defending your identity and owning it. Your life does not become stronger when everyone understands it. It becomes stronger when you can continue even when they don't. But this creates a deeper question. If you stop explaining yourself, what do you do when someone tries to provoke a reaction from you? That is where the next rule begins. Rule 2. Let silence become your default response. The person who controls their emotions understands a powerful truth. Silence is not the absence of power. Sometimes silence is proof that you have power. Most people react because they believe every challenge requires an answer. Someone insults them. They respond. Someone questions them. They defend. Someone tries to provoke them. They immediately reveal exactly what affects them. But what they don't realize is that every emotional reaction creates a doorway. It shows people where they can enter your mind. A person who knows how to trigger you does not need control over your actions. They already have control over your attention. This is why silence is so difficult. It forces you to sit with the discomfort instead of escaping through reaction. Imagine someone sends you a message designed to make you angry. A disrespectful comment, an accusation, something clearly meant to pull you into an argument. The old version of you responds immediately. You type, you delete, you rewrite, you send. Then you spend the next hour wondering how they will respond. But the disciplined version of you does something different. You read the message, you recognize the emotion rising, you put the phone down, you return to your life. The situation did not control you because you refused to let it enter your peace. That is the hidden strength of silence. It creates a space between what happens and what you choose to do. And inside that space is where freedom exists. But silence alone is not enough, because you can remain calm on the outside while still being controlled by the outcome you want. You can say nothing and still be desperate internally. That leads to the third rule. Rule 3. Move like the outcome is already decided. Most people think confidence comes from believing they will succeed. The Stoics understood something deeper. Confidence comes from knowing you will remain yourself, regardless of the result. Most people attach their identity to outcomes. If they win, they feel capable. If they lose, they question themselves. If people approve, they feel valuable. If people reject them, they feel diminished. This creates a dangerous weakness. Your confidence becomes dependent on things you cannot control. But what they don't realize is that the strongest people separate effort from outcome. They give everything to the process. They accept whatever result follows. Imagine walking into an important interview. The insecure version of you walks in thinking, I need them to choose me. Every answer becomes a performance. Every facial expression becomes a judgment. Every moment feels like a test of your worth. But the Stoic version enters differently. I will prepare. I will perform. I will give my best. The result is not mine to control. Same interview, same pressure, different identity. One person is trying to prove they deserve a place. The other person already knows they are responsible for their own effort. That difference changes everything. Your confidence becomes stable because it is no longer built on winning every situation. It is built on trusting yourself in every situation. But there is another level most people never reach, because even if you control your reactions and accept your outcomes, you can still lose yourself by chasing one thing: other people's approval. Rule 4. Detach from needing anyone's approval. Approval is one of the most subtle forms of control because it rarely feels like control. It feels like being accepted. It feels like being respected. It feels like maintaining peace. But sometimes what looks like keeping the peace is actually abandoning yourself to avoid discomfort. Most people do not lose themselves through one major decision. They lose themselves through hundreds of small compromises. They change their opinion to avoid disagreement. They hide their ambition to avoid criticism. They stay silent because honesty might make someone uncomfortable. Each decision seems harmless, but over time, those decisions create a person who is constantly adjusting themselves for an audience, and eventually they forget what they actually believe. The hidden cost of approval seeking is not rejection. It is self-betrayal. Because every time you choose acceptance over your principles, you teach yourself that your values are negotiable. Imagine you share an idea you believe in. You spent weeks developing it. You explain it to someone you respect. Their response is immediate. That probably won't work. The old version of you feels pressure instantly. You start defending. You start adding more reasons. You start looking for a way to make them approve. Not because your idea changed, because your confidence depended on their reaction. The stronger version of you responds differently. You listen. You evaluate. If the criticism contains truth, you improve. If it does not, you let it pass. You do not confuse disagreement with rejection. You do not confuse being challenged with being wrong. That is a level of freedom most people never experience, because they are not only trying to succeed, they are trying to succeed while making sure nobody disapproves of them, and those two goals often conflict. The Stoics understood that peace comes when your actions are guided by principles instead of reactions. When you no longer need everyone to approve of your path, your energy returns to where it belongs, building it. But even this is not the final level, because a person can stop chasing approval. They can control their emotions. They can accept uncertainty, and still have one weakness remaining. They may not fully trust themselves. That is why the final rule is the foundation behind all the others. Rule 5. Treat your word as law. Say less. Mean everything. The strongest confidence is not built by convincing yourself you are powerful. It is built by proving to yourself that you can be trusted. Most people search for confidence through feelings. They wait until they feel motivated. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they feel different. But confidence does not come from a feeling. It comes from evidence. Every promise you keep becomes proof. Every promise you break becomes doubt. Think about how trust works with another person. If someone constantly says one thing and does another, eventually their words lose meaning. Your mind works the same way. You tell yourself, I'll wake up early. Then you negotiate. I'll start tomorrow. You promise. I'll train consistently. Then you make exceptions. You decide, I'll stay calm when someone disrespects me. Then one comment takes control of your emotions. The damage is not just the missed action. The deeper damage is that your own mind starts learning. My words do not matter. That is where confidence begins to collapse. Now imagine the opposite. You make fewer promises, but you keep everyone. When you say you will do something, you do it when nobody is watching. You become someone who can rely on yourself. This is what creates what I call the evidence ledger. Every disciplined action is a deposit. Every broken promise is a withdrawal. Confidence is simply the result of collecting enough evidence that you can trust yourself under pressure. That is why truly confident people rarely need to announce who they are. Their actions have already introduced them. Their discipline speaks before they do. And that is the final difference between someone who appears confident and someone who actually is. Remember the moment from the beginning. Someone questioned you. Someone misunderstood you. Someone tried to pull you into proving yourself. The old version of you believed confidence came from having the perfect response, the perfect explanation, the perfect outcome. But the stronger version of you understands something different. Confidence is not the ability to control every situation. It is the ability to remain in control of yourself when the situation refuses to cooperate. You stop explaining yourself because your identity is no longer built on convincing people. You choose silence because every reaction does not deserve access to your energy. You release the outcome because your worth is not determined by a single result. You detach from approval because your principles matter more than temporary acceptance. And you keep your word because the person you should trust most is yourself. That is what makes someone difficult to manipulate. Not aggression, not arrogance, not pretending you are above everyone else. Real confidence is quiet. It is the person who can walk into uncertainty without needing the world to reassure them. It is the person who can be misunderstood without losing themselves. It is the person who can lose an outcome without losing their identity. The strongest person in the room is not the person who controls everyone around them. It is the person who has mastered the one thing they were always responsible for, themselves. Because when your confidence comes from discipline, nobody can simply take it away. People can criticize you. They can doubt you. They can disagree with you. But they cannot control someone who no longer needs permission to stand firmly in who they are. If you are building that kind of confidence, comment below. Which of these 5 Stoic rules are you working on mastering first?